Chapter 12, Developing Your Friendship with God, the Almighty Slave Owner. You are as close to God as you choose to be. Well, that's really good. That means I can continue to be far, far away from that homicidal, suicidal fuckhead. I must choose to be honest with God. Because apparently, omniscience... I don't know. In the Bible, friends of God were honest about their feelings, often complaining, second-guessing, accusing, and arguing with their Creator. God, however, didn't seem to be bothered by this frankness. In fact, he encouraged it. Well, Rick, if that's the case, then why do you keep telling your readers that they have to obey without question or delay, when apparently God is okay with them second-guessing him, accusing, and arguing with him? Here's more of Rick Warren's Inside Scoop. God is bored with predictable, pious cliches, like the Lord's Prayer. I mean, why would God want you to do that one? Just because it tells you in the New Testament that that's the only prayer God actually commands you to say. But that would just make it a predictable, pious cliche. And Rick Warren knows God very personally, and he says, God doesn't like that. Bitterness is the greatest barrier to friendship with God. I'm pretty sure actually doubting his existence is the biggest barrier. Why would I want to be God's friend if he allowed this? The antidote, of course, is to realize that God always acts in your best interest. Having you in a horrific car accident, totally in your best interest. Losing a leg, totally in your best interest. Being beaten by your spouse, that was God working in your best interest, you ungrateful little wretch. Stop your whining. Wait for Rick Warren to just brush aside the problem of pain and problem of evil. He's like, oh, God's acting in your best interest, even if it's painful and you don't understand it. It's encouraging to know that all of God's closest friends, Moses, David, Abraham, Job, and others, had bouts with doubt. Yeah, that's encouraging as an atheist, but I don't actually see why that would be encouraging as a theist. I mean, Moses and David and Abraham, shit, these guys knew God was real. They talked to him, they saw him, there were miracles, and expressing doubt is sometimes the first step toward the next level of intimacy with God. Wow, atheists ought to be the closest to God in that case. Dear Lord, I know that I don't believe in you, but Rick Warren says that if I just tell you that I don't think you're real, we'll be BFFs. You know what? I do feel like so close to God now. I must choose to obey God in faith. Rick says every time you trust God's wisdom and do whatever he says, even when you don't understand it, you deepen your friendship with God. Look, Rick, friendship isn't obedience. You're about to tell me why I'm wrong on that, and I'll get to that in a second. But first, let me talk about, okay? My best friend, hi Kay. We've been friends for, 10 years now? We've reached different conclusions about God, the universe, how to handle our respective unplanned pregnancies earlier this year. Good luck and congrats, by the way. But she doesn't obey me. I don't obey her. She's a very dear friend of mine, one of the most important people in the world to me. She's a Christian. We don't agree on shit. That's okay. Obedience isn't part of friendship. Obedience is part of some parent-child relationships, some employee-employer relationships, and lots of other imbalanced relationships where one party has control over another. Friendship isn't like that. It's not supposed to be like that. And by the way, neither is dating. Jesus made it clear that obedience is a condition of intimacy with God. He said, you are my friends if you do what I command. There was this little brat that lived down the street when I was a kid, Lindsay. And she was bossy as hell. And anytime she didn't get her way, she would pull out the infamous, if you don't do this, you're not my friend anymore. And it just reminds me so much of Rick Warren's God. If you don't do what I command, you're not my friend. Wah! Sorry, Rick, you worship the whiniest Jesus I've ever come across in all my study of different batshit theologies. Unbelievers often think Christians obey out of obligation or guilt or fear of punishment. But the opposite is true. Well, Rick, I do believe that for you, the opposite is true. You're not worried about being tortured in hell forever because you're far too egotistical to think that that's a risk for you. You are in it for the reward. You've let us know. It may not be obligation, guilt, or fear of punishment, but that doesn't mean it's love either. Jesus' relationship with his Father is the model for our relationship with him. Jesus did whatever the Father asked him to do, including die. Now, won't you go die for Jesus like Rick Warren wants you to? Rick says I must choose to value what God values, which primarily seems to be himself. Oh, I'm sorry. Rick says that what God cares about most is the redemption of his people. What? Then it seems like God should not have invented hell or allowed hell to exist or should have stopped hell from existing. I mean, if he's all powerful and he has a number one goal and it's that we not go there, gee, I can think of so many solutions other than murdering his own son like a psychopath that would be actually quite a bit more effective. According to Ricky, the dearest thing to the heart of God is the death of his son. The second dearest thing is when his children share that news with others. I like that Rick Warren thinks he knows God's actual ranking system of what's dearest versus second dearest to his heart. Rick says that I must desire friendship with God more than anything else. Like, real people. Rick hasn't threatened us with hell in a long time. I think he's going to need to throw out another stick because the carrot's just not that appealing. Oh, looky. If you've just been going through the motions spiritually, don't be surprised when God allows pain in your life. Ooh, you better worship God the way Rick Warren tells you to, or else you're just going through the motion and God is gonna hurt you. Ricky says that pain is the fuel of passion. He quotes C.S. Lewis saying, "Pain is God's megaphone," like a cheerleader. It's God's way of arousing us from spiritual lethargy. Again, victim blaming. It is so crucial that people are always at fault for anything that they suffer. Anything bad that happens, humans did. Anything good that happens, even if humans did it, God gets the glory. You're starting to get it, YouTube. I don't talk about this much because it largely seems like whining and bitching, but I have arthritis. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I have tendonitis. I have endometriosis. I am in pain every single day. I don't remember not being in pain. Well, let's see. I was in pain when I was devout. I was in pain when I was backsliding. I was in pain when I rededicated myself. I was in pain when I went to a deliverance seminar. I was in pain when I was faithful. I was in pain when I was whoring against God. Yeah, I've pretty much always been in pain. It's just a factor of my life ideal, hence not bitching about it that much. But Rick Warren's idea that all pain is God talking to you about your spiritual lethargy is just yet another example of victim blaming and also another example of Rick just pulling shit out of his ass, which came out sounding a lot more gross and possible than I intended. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, more important than developing a friendship with God. It's a relationship that will last forever. Fuck being a good parent or partner or lover or friend. Just kiss God's ass your whole life. And it's not like any of those other people have the ability to give you an eternal reward. God's the only one offering. Day 12, point to ponder. I'm as close to God as I choose to be. Can I get a restraining order and choose to be farther? Verse to remember. Draw close to God, and God will draw close to you. Now remember, even if you don't, he's still watching every single thing you do. And he wants to be involved in every single decision, thought, action, fuck, masturbation session, or anything else you do. God totally wants to be in on it. Because he doesn't have a life of his own, I guess. Question to consider. What practical choices will I make today in order to grow closer to God? A more important question to consider, why would I want to? Everybody on YouTube, have great and godless days. Don't be anyone's slave. Peace.